Hello everyone. At the beginning of this video, I want you to ask yourself a question. Do you know how throws work in Tekken 8? Do you know how they're different from previous Tekken games? I thought I did just by osmosis, by playing the game a lot, but I hadn't really looked into it myself. So today I did my homework, and I've learned some very interesting things that I'd like to share. Now, my prediction is that throws will become an increasingly prolific part of how this game is played well, and I think Tekken 8 will be the Tekken game where they become a huge part of even top level play. I think you're going to see pro players use throws strategically in tournaments and stuff, which wasn't really the case in, for example, Tekken 7. I mean, to an extent, but not that much, depending on what character was used. I think you can really boost your chances when you're playing online if you understand certain things about these throws that I want to explain. So I'm going to get into it, but just in case we have some very new players watching, which is likely, I want to go over some basics first. So for all characters in the game, you have generic throws, so a 1 throw and a 2 throw. A 1 throw is performed with 1+3, and a 2 throw with 2+4. Both of these throws can be broken with either punch button, so you can press either 1 or 2 to break either of these throws. They do 35 damage, and they impact at 12 frames. You can tell with the attack startup frames here that it says 12 to 14. I think you can ignore that for the most part because, as you can tell right here, even when I catch my opponent at tip range, I still get 12 frames to impact. So as far as I can tell, the only way the 13th and 14th frame will ever matter is if your opponent is outside of the range of the throw and then during the last 2 frames moves into range and then, gets caught in the active window, but that's going to be very rare. So for the most part, you can just remember that your throws are 12 frames to impact, and that's very easy to remember and use when you're learning about setups and frame traps and frame data and all the rest of it. And then all characters also have at least one non-generic throw. For Zafian, it's the up forward 1+2, and these are broken with 1+2 as opposed to 1 or 2, and they do a little bit more damage. So in the case of this throw right here, it does 40 damage as opposed to 35. And this also impacts at 12 frames. So very, very fast, which is a big part of why they're important. Now, first of all, why weren't throws used that much in high-level play in, for example, the previous game, Tekken 7? Well, if you are good at this game and you have decent reaction speed and experience and you're playing offline with minimal lag, if you're looking at the opponent's hands and you're awake, you can break throws knowing what throw is actually coming out by looking at the animation of the hands and break them on reaction pretty much every time. Now, obviously in practice, nobody reacts and breaks perfectly every time, so throws still had a bit of a role in Tekken 7 in high-level play, but they weren't used that much, and by some people they were even considered to be a little bit scruffy. Now, my theory is that Namco want grappling to be a more important part of their fighting game, and so they're trying to weave them into other mechanics to make them more significant. So let's get into how they've done that, and they've done it very successfully. I'll say this, I've been very critical of Tekken 8 in a bunch of ways, when it comes to its balance, its monetization, things like that, but this I actually kind of really like because it's taking a part of the game that we didn't see that much of and adding some very necessary and fun depth to it. They're also doing dumb stuff like, unbreakable grabs that are heat engagers and things like this. But, the generic changes, I think, are actually really cool. And I'm starting to use this more creatively now and realizing just how powerful it is. So the first thing that they've done is that they've turned throws into counter hit moves now. So as you probably know, when you counter hit with a normal move, it will go from having certain properties to certain other properties. For example, might become a launcher and do more damage. Well, in the case of throws, when they counter hit now, what happens is that the break window becomes dramatically smaller to the point where the throw is almost impossible to break. So in this first situation that I've recorded here, my opponent is going to do a down forward 1 into the 1+2 break grab, which is 12 frames, remember? And if I let my opponent do this, I can just react to it quite easily, press 1+2, which I have bound to a shoulder button on my pad here. And even if I wait quite a long time, if I'm still in the break window, I can break this throw and it's not a big problem. Now, I'm going to do the exact same situation here, but in between my opponent's attack and the throw, I'm going to do my 19 frame up forward 1, which is a move that's slow and isn't going to be able to interrupt the throw. So I'm going to get counter hit. And now the break window is going to become so small that if you look at my command history, you can see that I'm still attempting this break. And it's just very, very hard. It's obviously still possible, but only if I do the input like right away. I pretty much have to know that it's coming to be able to do that. And I think in a real match scenario, because your hands are occupied doing the attack that is getting counter hit, shifting your hands from that to a throw break that quickly is going to be very, very hard. And for the most part, almost always, counter hit throws are going to go unbroken. And that's super, super strong when you consider the fact that throws are 12 frames to impact. Like I said, that's very fast. If I told you that Zafina had a 12-frame counter hit high that was completely safe on block and did 40 damage and gave her really good Oki, you'd be like, that's OP. But it turns out that almost all characters, or all characters, have that, you know? It's very, very good. But it's good in ways that like you wouldn't have thought of in Tekken 7, because you're going to use this grappling on defense now. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so classic scenario. You're playing online against a Hwoarang, and he's doing his strings, right? And he's just spamming you down with his strings like this. Well, if there's a gap in my opponent's offense now, just a tiny breathing window where I'm going to try and take a turn or interrupt, I have now started attempting to throw throws in those windows, and I've had huge success with it. It really, really works, because 12 frames is fast enough that it is, you know, something that you can do even when you're being pressured. And if your opponent's going to attack, you're going to get that throw counter hit. It's going to not get broken. You get a bunch of damage and then some very, very juicy OP. So it's actually, like in the case of a lot of characters, it's going to be pretty much their fastest and most powerful counter hit option. So it's very, very good on defense. But the plot thickens. If we continue to consider the Hwoarang example, what Hwoarangs will do a lot of the time when there's a tiny gap in their string-based offense is they will fill that gap with an armor move. The armor moves are sort of placed in the packages of very offensive characters to patch up holes like that. But if you look at this, if I do a throw and my opponent performs an armor move, this star flash and this sound effect will play, and the throw now becomes completely unbreakable in any way. So unlike the counter hit throw where it can still be broken but it's very, very hard, this is completely unbreakable. If you see that flash and you hear that sound effect, this throw cannot be broken. And so it becomes an even more powerful option to interrupt offense, because if they do an armor move, you just get it guaranteed, which is very, very good in some matchups. I mean, potentially super powerful. So that's really good. One thing you might not have noticed, which is really interesting, is that the way Namco have programmed this is a throw will now be completely unbreakable, and this star flash will happen as long as the throw connects at any point during an armor move, a power crushes animation, including the recovery animation, which means that if we look at this armor move again, which is, you can tell that I'm plus 14 here because this back 3 is minus 14 in this game. Don't tell anybody, because I'm going to get blown up online when I abuse this. But again, I'm plus 14 and I have a 12 frame throw, and if I do my throw here, you can tell that it's still unbreakable and actually a punish. So you're going to start seeing your throws be optimal punishes in some situations when you block armor moves. If you don't have something great for 12 frames for your character, I mean Zafina for example doesn't, this is going to be a great option for her to punish some armor moves and even rage arts, which is just really cool. So that's how it works, and it even works for whiff punishment. If you whiff punish, you know, somebody doing armor moves with a throw, it will become unbreakable again. Now, there are different tiers to armor, and there's a hierarchy for how armor works in this game. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So, I told you that, I mean, we're talking about throws, but we're also kind of talking about armor, because these are sort of interwoven in a very interesting way in this game. But if we give me heat right here, and we do the same scenario again, you can tell that if I do a normal down forward one here, my opponent armors through it, and I get knocked down. But if I do my heat smash with Zafina, it will cancel the opponent's armor. It will sort of shatter the armor and break through. And you can hear the counter hit sound effect that happens right there. And so something that you might not have known is that heat crashes will cancel armor in this game, and throws will make and throws will become unbreakable. But if we go to the next thing here, we turn on my opponent's rage, and then we play scenario number 3 here. This is just going to be down forward 1 into rage art. If I do a throw in this gap, it's coming up too fast. I have to wait a little bit. Maybe like that. See that? So throws don't become unbreakable if it's the armor that happens before a rage art, because a rage art is sort of at a higher hierarchy, and it will go through heat smashes no problem, and go through them completely, and it will also go through throws. So you know, adds a little bit of depth even to rage arts, which is kind of cool. And then the final scenario that I have right here, I have my opponent doing a down forward 1 into their universal heat activator. So the universal heat activator is a big part of how this game is played online. I think basically the scenario of a round of Tekken 8 is both players are really trying to hit with their heat engagers because they're so powerful. But if they, you know, they're not successful doing that, they will at some point always attempt to activate generic heat either on defense or to plug up one of those holes in their spamming offense, right? So these things come out all the time. Well, they have armor. We have to wait a little bit here, I think. Or maybe I'll do there we go. See that? In the sort of armor hierarchy, these universal activators are on the same tier as generic armor moves, which means that you can know that your opponent will do this activator, because it's kind of obvious sometimes when they want to like fill a gap with this universal activator, and you can do a throw against it and have it become completely uninterruptible, or completely breakable I should say, and you're going to get guaranteed damage, which actually makes it pretty much the best option for dealing with these things, because these universal heat activators, they sort of pause the action in a very unique way. They have very good tracking. They have extreme range. So like punishing them or moving to the side around them is basically impossible. Interrupting them doesn't work unless you have a rage art, because they have armor. So when you think an opponent is going to do this, doing a throw is a very good choice against it. So I've started to like try and predict when the universal heat activator will happen and done a throw, and that's really worked out for me, and I've gotten a lot of damage that way. Another thing that you might not know is that, let's record a final scenario here, and this is also an important thing for you to know. It goes, you know, more into armor than to throws, but if we record this right here, so Zafina has a reversal, right? An armored reversal even, but this works for even reversals that aren't armor, like for example Oscar's reversal, which is very famous. If you do a reversal in this game and somebody does a throw, again the throw becomes unbreakable. So I have actually in like the Oscar matchup started to like try and bait out reversals and then done throws like a hard read and have them be unbreakable. So they're very cool for all kinds of different purposes now. And if you play a character like Jack, for example, who has all kinds of powerful grappling, you can get guaranteed damage off of some of them. It's super good. And you know, some characters like Law, for example, can turn a grab into a full combo, you know, which is even crazier in a game like this. So my big advice is, first of all, go into your character's move list and find out what kinds of throws you have. Is it just this generic package, or do you have something cool that's extra? Elisa, for example, you know, has a throw from full crouch, down back 1+2, which is very good and can be used in all kinds of ways with this. But then do this sort of uncomfortable feeling thing of throw your throw when you're on defense and you're being spammed down as a fast counter hit option, because it feels so weird because it's not how we used to play Tekken, but I've started to do it more and more. It feels fun and it just really works. And then these like hard reads against reversals and armor moves, it's just super good. And one thing that I didn't show you that maybe I should have, but you know, I don't have to show it, I can just explain it. You can also guaranteed punish rage arts with throws in this game, because they're fast enough that they're you know, going to be during the recovery animation of the Rage Shard, and the Rage Shard, even though it has invincibility in the beginning, is still considered an armor move. And that means if you block a Rage Shard and a throw is definitely going to kill, and you're nervous that, you know, your 15 frame block Punisher, that's a 1 frame link, and getting that out perfect because the Rage Shard is -15, you can actually just do a grab after a blocked Rage Shard, and it's going to be unbreakable, guaranteed a punish, and you're going to kill the opponent, right? So all kinds of really cool new ways of using these grabs. And I think it's not a coincidence that I think the top 2, or at least 2 of the top 5 most successful characters that we see in online right now, tend to be characters who are very good at putting the opponent in frame trap situations, or just, you know, putting themselves in advantageous positions, and then they have really good non-generic grappling. Dragunov, you know, King, but Azucena, after her running move, you know, likes to throw a lot of throws and stuff like that. One thing to keep in mind is, of course, the heat dash situation. So if I have heat and I'm going to do a heat dash, this is a very common situation where you see somebody after the dash use a grab. And a big tip would be, when somebody is doing a heat dash against you and you're on defense, don't use panic and use your universal heat activator, and don't panic and use any other sort of armor move or try and reverse the opponent's attack, because they're very likely to attempt a throw, and you're just not going to be able to break it if you do that. You're pretty much forced to decide whether or not you want to stand up and block or crouch and block. And if you think your opponent's going to do a throw, maybe crouch and block, try and go under the throw and launch it with a while standing move, because that is still going to be the main weakness of throws. You know, Jack has a heat engaging throw that throws people who are crouching. King has the same thing, but for a lot of characters, the throws are always going to be highs, and so they become vulnerable to those ducks. But when we think about whether or not a move is good in this game, what I think we should always do is compare risk-reward ratio. So, you know, I can get a lot of damage for hitting with Zafina's down forward 3-4 right here. I can get, you know, 49 damage or 50, but it's a risky move to attempt because the second hit here is duckable. You know, my down forward can give me a combo, but it's punishable on block. With throws, unless you're getting ducked, the worst thing that can happen is that they get broken. And when throws get broken, nothing happens to you. You know, the situation just kind of resets and nothing bad happens to you. Which is kind of strange, right? So the risk-reward ratio is actually skewed heavily in favor of attempting a lot of throws. And if you attempt a couple of throws and your opponent breaks them, don't get discouraged. Actually keep doing it, because now that they can counter hit and they have all these guaranteed situations, even if your opponent has perfect throw breaking, all you need to do is time it right and you're still going to be able to be successful. And then the final thing you should really do is find out what some really good Oki is after you're successful with your different throws. Like for Zafina, after this thing, doing a down 2-4 is going to give me a bunch of guaranteed damage on an opponent who doesn't know exactly how to get up right. So it's, you know, potentially going to be not 40 damage, but like enough damage that it is the equivalent of an entire combo. So very powerful stuff. But biggest takeaway from this video, and what I want you to try when you're getting spammed down online, which you will be pretty much in every match you play online in Tekken 8, try and throw counter hit throws on defense and see what happens, because it's really cool when it starts working, and it really will. But hopefully you learned something in this video. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you guys again very soon.